Hi guys, Everyday Knife Guy here with a video that I said a little while ago I was going to make, and that's me just getting around to doing it now. When I did a brief review on this small Swiss Army knife, Victorinox Swiss Army Knife before, I noted that it has a corporate logo on the back, and I said I would take a quick look at the process I use for getting rid of that. And yeah, that's what we're going to do today. Now, in my experience, these tend to vary a bit. Some of them are very near the surface coat on the Celador scales. Some of them are a little deeper in, so I have no idea starting out how much work this is going to be. But I won't bore you with endless sanding. I'll pause the video up and try and keep this pretty brief, but we'll see how well it comes out and how it looks in the end. So overall, these scales are in pretty good condition. There's a few surface scratches and stuff. We might give the front one a light buff up as well. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and do that. This classic SD here used to have a logo on the back, and as you can see, apart from my fingerprints, let me clean that up a little bit, actually looks pretty good, and it's fairly shiny. Because you're actually removing material from the surface of the scale, the only difference or way you could tell looking at one of these that a logo has been removed is usually you'll see the bevel on the edge of the scale is slightly removed, so it tends to be more of a sharp angle. But again, you have to really look to see that. So you can see the scale itself tends to have a flatter surface, smoother surface than the stock. So look at the front. You can see there's a bit more rounding on there. But other than that, pretty hard to tell there was ever a logo on there. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one today. First thing you're going to want to do is remove the keyring, because you can see on let's focus on a one layer like this, the tiny little keyring is actually thicker than the knife itself, so you can't hold it flat and sand it if you have the keyring on there. So let's go ahead and just rotate that off. Okay. Next thing you want to do is remove the tools. So we have toothpick and tweezers. Normally, once I've done the actual sanding, I will take the scales off and give it a full bath and clean and lubricate everything, clean the tools, put everything back together. But tends to be easiest to actually sand the scales when they're on the knife. Gives you a little bit more to get a hold of. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I'm going to use a very rough paper to actually break the surface coat on the scales. This is just 100 grit, really very rough. So let's go ahead and I'll show you a few strokes here. It literally is as easy as just back and forth like that. Now, if you watch some videos, you'll see some people do this with wet paper, some dry. I personally find doing it dry seems to work better. I don't find that there's a particular issue with scratching in the long run. So by the time you get down to the really fine paper, I'm going to end up on a 3000 grit Trizac here. So by the time you get to that and then use a polishing compound, it's you know, for all the mess with wet paper, you just as well do it dry. So as you can see, we're getting started there, and already, let me get a cloth here and wipe this. Already you can see part of that logo coming off. That's quite encouraging, because I know the last time I did this was actually that classic, and it took forever just to get started on removing the logo. So this one maybe isn't too deep. So I'm going to pause up here and do a little bit more with this paper, and then we'll come back to you. Okay, so literally just another minute of sanding with the really coarse grit there. You can see the logo is pretty much all but gone. And the trick really is just put it on a flat surface and holding it nice and flat, making sure you're not rocking the knife around as you sand it. Otherwise, you'll get undulations in the scale. As long as you're holding it nice and flat, you're going to end up with a good result. So I'm going to switch from that to something a little finer. This is 180, and we're just going to go over this a little bit, see if we can get the last little bit of logo off. Obviously, you don't want to go any deeper into the scale than you absolutely have to. Let's make sure this is focused. You don't want to go any deeper than you absolutely have to, because you don't want to be losing any more material from the scale than is strictly necessary to get rid of the logo. So let's just make sure we're not doing that, and there's only a tiny little bit left there, so we'll go ahead and do a little bit more. You can see there's a little bit of green coming on the paper there, just with the actual material of the scale being removed. So let's just dampen that slightly. So yeah, you can see the logo is now completely gone, and that was really easy. That's probably the easiest one I've ever done. So it was very near the surface. I think the variations are due to how the logo is actually imprinted into the scale, or perhaps who did the imprint or whatever. You can see there's a slight ghosting there. I think that's maybe we haven't quite removed one layer. So I'm just going to put a little bit more pressure on that corner, go over it, make sure it's totally flat. Apologise, my camera's not focusing very well here, but hopefully you can see what's going on. So yeah, I'm fairly happy with that for this grit of paper. I'm going to get rid of this and go up to 2000, just a regular 2000 paper. Let's go over that a little bit. And it's really just a case of, I'm going to do a little bit of side to side first and then long ways. It's really just a case of getting the scratches smaller and smaller now, and we're getting quite a nice smooth finish already. And last thing I'll do is move on to this Trizact. This is great paper for all sorts of applications for knives. I find it's got that nice cushioned texture. So again, you can just press the knife gently into that and just rub it gently back and forward, and that's just going to polish it up. Really, really fine paper. It's just going to remove any of those little scratches that we made with the coarser ones. Okay, let's see how we're looking. Yeah, not too bad. You can see in the light there's a little bit of material here that's reflecting. I think I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more pressure on that corner there. Just see if we can buff off a little bit of that and get everything nice and even. Yeah, it's a little better. I'm just going to pause this and go over that and see if I can get everything nice and even. Okay, so just a little bit more work there and everything's looking pretty even now. It's just looking a little bit matte. Normally, as I say, I'd give this knife a complete bath, take the scales off and clean everything up, but I'm not going to do that for sake of keeping this video to a reasonable length. So what I would do once I've done that is usually just use a little bit of this, which is Displex display polish. It's actually designed for cell phone displays, but it's great on all plastics, and just a little bit of this on here. Take a little cloth, got a little bit more than I require there, but we're just going to buff that up. That'll just bring a bit of polish back into the scale. You can see already it's starting to get a bit of shine to it. So yeah, this is one of the easier ones I've done. Sometimes you'll have to do quite a bit of sanding with a coarse grit to get the kind of the surface coating of the scale broken and actually start to get the logo removed. And you might be asking yourself, why would you even want to remove the logo? And of course it's a personal preference thing. Sometimes you might find a knife that you want to add to your collection that does have a logo on it and you'd rather it didn't, or maybe you just don't like them. I personally don't like them. I like having the Victorinox logo on there, but not a corporate one, so I tend to remove it if I do pick up one that has a logo on it. And of course, if you're picking up small Victorinox like this, they tend to be quite cheap, particularly if they do have a corporate logo on them. So you can see the scale's looking pretty good, pretty shiny. And it would be quite hard to tell that's not stock, to be honest. And so one other thing to note is, of course, you do have the tool going in here. So depending how much material you've used, you may have, I don't know if this will focus, you may have a bit of a discrepancy in height between the top of the toothpick and the scale. So if you have that, obviously you just need to take the end of the toothpick and rub it down a little bit on a fine sandpaper like this until you get the right height. And to remove quite a lot of material from this one, so yeah, to take quite a bit of the toothpick off just to level it up. So but there you go, that's fitting pretty good and looking not too bad, I think. So pretty simple technique. As I say, there's videos out there of people doing a lot more complex techniques to do the same thing. I really don't think you need to. I don't think you need to make more of it than what it is. It's just a bit of sanding, buffing and polishing, and I think the results are pretty decent. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.